thanks so much for joining us once again right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. Gerald Glassford, coming right back at you here for the state of pro wrestling for November 2022. We're getting into the thick of it. Turkey Day is almost upon us as we record this. Just looking forward to it. Another Survivor Series is around the corner. And who, pray tell, is here? He's not a turkey, though, however. But he's back. He is here once again. Good man indeed. You got to go ahead and check out all the shows that he's doing, including his most famous, the PVDcast at thepvdcast.com. It is, of course, John Orlando. And John, great to have you here. Always talking pro wrestling. The man I come to for all the pro wrestling knowledge out there.
Well, it's great to be back, Gerald. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I have been looking forward all day. You know what? All week. Let's just say it that way. To sit down and chat with you. It's always a good time. I always enjoy sharing my insights with you and with your listeners, and enjoy chatting with you when it comes to wrestling, Gerald. So I'm excited for this edition.
Absolutely. And some of the things we'll cover, of course, what everything's going on in the major wrestling scene as far as pro wrestling. Plus, also as well, I wanted to go ahead and remember the retiring Great Muta and what he's done for this wonderful industry of ours, as he is going to be retiring in the not too distant future. And we'll give you the idea when he's exactly going to have his last match coming up here later in the show. Plus, also as well, we're recording this a day before the 25th anniversary of one of the most monumental moments in wrestling history. Let's just say in-ring history. It's probably, I know people talk about stuff that happened back in the day, stuff that maybe happened in the future after this, but I think there is no more monumental moment in time more important than the 1997 Survivor Series. And we'll explain why, my thoughts and also John's thoughts as well on how important it is to him and also how important it is to the world of pro wrestling since it's happened, all the events, all the stuff that's gone on behind the scenes, all the speculation, hearsay, and everything else therein. We'll talk about that on the back end of the show. But first, my friend, Crown Jewel has been just finished over the course of the past few days, and I know everybody is just excited as far as what's coming up for Survivor Series. Of course, Roman Reigns, as to no surprise to anyone out there, has retained the WWE Championship over a very game Logan Paul, who suffered a major and catastrophic knee injury during the course of the match. But I will give him credit. I know the Paul brothers, we always rip on them, but, for their celebrity boxing and the stuff that they're doing on the side, and the fact that they're facing off against, one is facing off against either beyond their prime fighters or UFC fighters in the ring. And then you have Logan Paul, who's doing a tremendous job in the ring, but he's only wrestled 3 times. I will give him all the credit in the world. He did an amazing job. It's another effort by the WWE to bring in a non-wrestler like Bad Bunny, who has done an amazing job in the ring. People are talking about him as a Rookie of the Year candidate, which I'm not exactly thrilled about since he's only been around for 3 times. Like Braun Breaker is somewhere rocking around going, hey, that's my slot. So I want to hear your thoughts, though, on Crown Jewel before we leave it totally in rearview mirror. Once again, Roman Reigns victorious, the Usos victorious. It's obviously setting up for them to be very dominant, although there's a match coming up right after this taping here later this week against the New Day to determine whether or not the Usos will extend their longevity as far as champions are concerned. Plus the, surprising results in one way and not so surprising results in another for the women's division as far as damage control is concerned. I still think there's some issues there in regards to the whole women's division, but it seems like the company's not yet 100% buying in on damage control taking over all the way. Your thoughts as we leave Saudi Arabia and the Crown Jewel?
Well, first off, I did not watch the pay-per-view. It's not me making a political statement or anything along those lines. It's not because of that. I just don't. I don't get energized for it. I don't get excited for it. Where I get excited for Survivor Series or the Royal Rumble or Mania or SummerSlam, the big ones. To me, Crown Jewel is nothing more than another Money in the Bank pay-per-view or live performance enhanced event or whatever the heck the initials are, whatever they're calling them now. Premium live events, that's what they're calling them now.
It is a glorified in your house show.
It is. I don't get excited for him. So I did not watch, but I did read up on what happened. No surprise that Logan Paul had a heck of a match with Roman Reigns. That did not surprise me in the least. It did surprise me that he got injured. And that is unfortunate because that's obviously putting him
That's a
on
catastrophic knee injury. I mean, he tore everything in that knee: meniscus, ACL, and MCL.
Absolutely. That's a year and a half probably rehab, I would think. I'm no doctor. I just play one on TV. No, I'm kidding. I was surprised that they put the titles, the women's tag team titles, back on Sky and Dakota Kai. I was somewhat surprised by that.
It just seems to have no purpose. As much as I'm a big fan of Asuka, and you've already noted that to me, and I've noted that to the entire world out there, I just didn't think, she was coming back off of a knee injury. This is her first match back, and they did win the titles last week on Raw. But, if it was only to go ahead and just have a quick change back to the same team for Crown Jewel, it doesn't really make much sense. It should have just stayed on Damage Control in the first place.
Correct. I agree. So I thought that was, from what I read too, Bianca Belair and Bayley, went all out and had a one heck of a match that was very, very hard hitting, very physical, because it was the last woman standing match. Overall, it sounded like Crown Jewel was par for the course of what we expected.
But the only thing is, a lot of people were leaning into Bayley winning it so that you can have at least storyline wise where Damage Control for at least a period of time controls, quote unquote, all the championships except for Ronda Rousey's, which again, I still don't have any idea why they have not merged the titles. Please, for the love of God, just merge the titles. It just does not seem, with all the stuff going on with Damage Control, that seems so much more important than Ronda Rousey and whatever she's doing on Friday nights. Just please go ahead and merge the titles. Just do it, please, for the love of God.
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're going with that, Gerald. Obviously, my question would be: are they hesitant to do that, to have all the titles on Damage Control, because it would be very reminiscent of what they're doing with the Bloodline?
Well, you wouldn't have it done for long. You can have short periods and reigns. I mean, just for a week, 2 weeks, even a month, just have them like on top because it's the hot group right now. And you usually want to go ahead with the momentum. I'm not a big fan of Damage Control. I thought Bayley's work with the Ding Dong back before she got injured and the stuff that she was doing with Sasha Banks was better than what she's doing now, but it's still good enough that is probably better than anything else in the women's division right now. I'm going to go ahead and make that clear. This is like, even if you're getting like 3/4 Bayley heel, you're still getting a darn good heel that's probably better than anything we see. Certainly better than Ronda Rousey's heel portrayal with Shayna Baszler and whatever they're doing, trying to break people's noses and all that stuff on Friday night that are actually already broken in Natalya. She needed a surgery anyways, so they just tried to do a storyline where they broke her nose. But I just don't find that compelling. I just don't find what's going on there compelling at all. I think just to go ahead and just, at least for a month, just have everything go Damage Control's way would probably be the best way of going ahead storyline. Going forward.
I'd like to back up for a minute. And you said that Damage Control is the best thing going right now
in the women's division. In the women's division.
So, and look, they're good.
With the association of the new Nikki Cross, which is the old Nikki Cross from NXT.
Right, which I herald that Nikki ASH was so terrible. And
I still love the fact that she did win the 24/7 title. Was supposed to dump it in the trash, and she was literally right next to it, and she missed it, just dropping in the trash. And you heard the clank as it dropped on the floor, and you saw Bayley's face go, "Oh, she was just supposed to drop it in the trash." But hey, it just. I thought that was funny. If you actually catch that on Twitter, it's really funny.
So I'm going to throw this out there, and this is maybe a little bit off topic, but you have Mandy Rose, who has been down in NXT. who has been doing some very decent work down there, very good work, not
A,
decent, good work.
a year
Why is
champion.
she right? And she's been a champion for a very long time. Why has she not been brought back to the main roster?
Who knows? Maybe that's her choice as well. Maybe because she's flourishing in that role. Maybe it's because she doesn't want to become part of the mix or per se. Because she saw what happened to Asuka, because Asuka was a champion for 3 years, retired as the NXT title undefeated, then was doing the undefeated gimmick for a while, but now she's just a really, really good wrestler that's not given the push that I feel that she deserves. But that's another story altogether. But again, that maybe she just does not want to become part of the little fish in the big C syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Mm-hmm.
she likes being the big fish, like the territories. Some
Yeah,
wrestlers
sure.
chose their way out of a WCW or WWF at that time plot line to become when the territories were still somewhat relevant, a bigger fish in the territories, which was more important to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like if it's not up to Mandy Rose, if that
Mhm.
was not her decision and they sent her down, you should recall her because she is doing some fantastic work. But nevertheless, back to what we were talking about. I think Crown Jewel, it was okay. I like I said, did not watch it, but from everything, all indications that I have, from everything I've listened to and read and whatnot, it seemed like it was just an ordinary, average, run of the mill pay per view. Which I think that, let's be honest, going overseas, you all automatically get a bigger reaction because the WWE does not travel. We've seen it all, I guess is what I'm trying to say. We as American fans have seen it all. We've seen it all. So we're maybe more callous, more jaded, that we have to see something more elaborate and the spectacle has to be bigger or whatnot. And maybe these folks in Saudi Arabia and other areas, throughout the world, when the WWE comes to town, it's a it's huge. Where for us, it's like, well, they're coming here to Columbus in December. Okay.
Well,
Does
the
that
thing
make
is,
sense? I mean,
it does make sense, but the thing is, though, with Logan Paul's injury and his very competitive and very good, I mean, he's getting high praise. You talk about
yes.
being just an average show. It might have been just an average show overall, but that performance by him in the main event made it a very, very good, very watchable, very highly rated for the year main
Hmm.
event as far as his performance. Even after he suffered the injury halfway through, he still gutted his way out to go ahead and provide the fans out there and also the fans watching on screen a good match. So I will give him a ton of credit and all the credit in the world. But what that does is that takes away another potential buying or selling that you, if you're WWE's challenger that you want to sell to an audience as far as an attraction is concerned, because he's now out, like you said, a year and a half at least. Now you've got a very limited number of individuals that can effectively give you a decent, back in the old days they used to call it buy rate, but decent audience as far as someone who is believable enough to go ahead and think that, yes, we're going to go ahead and have this person be competitive or even possibly beat Roman Reigns at this point in time.
Well, and it goes back to what we've said many times on this show. This is what happens when you don't build contenders, when you don't build up talent, so that when a Logan Paul gets hurt, even though I agree with you, he did a fantastic job from everything that I heard. And look, from what I've seen with my own two eyes in his other two matches, he's an athlete. He knows what to do. He's very, very good. He's picked it up very, very quickly. Um, but now that he's gone, you're stuck with, well, we don't, who's next? Who do we got? We don't have, it's not like we have somebody else that can just step right on in.
The one
Um,
thing I want to ask you though is with the vignettes that have been very well done with the White Rabbit vignettes
yeah.
and the fact that he is the number one seller currently in the WWE shop as we speak. Bray Wyatt's name is now being tossed around once again as a top contender for the WWE title. And I'm assuming at some point in time, it's a question of when, not if, there will be a run for him as a top contender against, of course, Roman Reigns. I think Cody Rhodes is also an option once he gets back and well, but there's a limited amount. The Rock, of course, I think that if they can go ahead and pull out whatever the millions and the millions, pardon the pun there, of what we will see as far as how much they'll pull out as far as him facing against Roman Reigns. I don't see a purpose of a title switch there. Okay, if they
No.
do it, it's just because Rock wants them to do it. But even if he wins, what purpose does that serve? Because he would have to give the title up the next day, which could mean that there's something that long term planned as far as the tournament is concerned. But a real contender to Roman Reigns, they're limited, like you say. Nobody thinks Drew McIntyre is going to win it. Nobody
No.
thinks Braun Strowman's going to win it. Nobody thinks that almost any of these other individuals on the roster, Bobby Lashley, even Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns has been done to death. And please do not give me another one of those matches between those two, because we've seen it all. And I do not want to see anything else between those two. So at this point in time, there are limited choices. So it looks to me like Roman Reigns may be your champion for some time to come.
Well, and you know what? One thing we talked about, or we didn't talk about, is Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar's return, where they're trying to angle him in as a heel, but no one's buying it. The
No
fans
one
are
cares.
no,
Yeah.
yeah, they either don't care or they're not buying it. And I've never liked Bobby Lashley as a babyface. I always liked Bobby Lashley as a heel. He's just got that swagger
Mm-hmm.
and that attitude to pull off the cocky, arrogant, I'm better than you character.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just never been a fan of babyface. So I think this match would be more intriguing to me. That match would have been more intriguing to me if it was the other way around. If Lashley was the heel, Lesnar was the face, and they didn't, just brought it that way as the storyline goes. I think that would have made me more interested than the way it's set up now with Lesnar trying to be shoehorned into being a babyface.
So let's get you back into the boardroom, or
Okay.
at the head of the table. Using the pun there in regards to the bloodline is concerned. And the bloodline storyline in and of itself, it has been good, with Solo Sikoa, Sami Zayn, the Usos. I love the fact that you can just see a Sami Zayn getting destroyed by the bloodline at some point in time when they're done with him. Storyline coming up at some point in time. You can see it's coming. It's not just a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Paul Heyman sitting at the head of the table with Roman Reigns. Obviously, it's been great. It's a great component for them. I think that's something that I have liked, is the fact that they've stuck with a champion. Roman Reigns finally embraced the character that we wanted him to for years. We thought it was a little bit too late, but it's still been the fact that he's done it. It's still been good for the WWE. The ratings have not been terrible with him doing it. The ratings have actually been pretty solid. So I think that a lot of credit goes to WWE, starting off with Vince McMahon, who is supposedly no longer in everyday plans for the as far as creative is concerned, and leaving it now to Hunter and Steph to go ahead and program things out. I do like a lot of the changes that Triple H has made as far as for the better,
Mm-hmm.
bringing wrestlers back that I think deserve another chance, creating new storylines which are a little bit more interesting than what's done before, not giving pushes to individuals that are not ready for it, and that to me has been pretty good. As Austin Theory is, I think, really talented and has a bright future, but he is not MJF. So let's not try to go ahead and try to make him an MJF. And I'm glad that they have not tried to go ahead and give him the mega push, because I just don't think he's got it quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
But
Agreed. Agreed.
there, not yet. I said he could, but he,
Mm-hmm.
it's just not there yet. But there, again, other individuals out there that were given a push that shouldn't or deserve it or didn't deserve it. Your thoughts on where the WWE is going, and your thoughts on what you can do now that you're sitting at the head of the table in the boardroom. Where would you like to see the WWE go next?
Well, I agree with what many people have said, that I think that the overall product has gotten better since Triple H is in charge.
I think it's gotten a little better overall.
I do. I think so. I think that bringing back those people like Karrion Cross, like Gargano.
But it's also the match quality and just
No,
the
yeah, yeah.
some of the skits have been taken out that are really, and there's some a little there that are they're unnecessary, but a lot of some of the stuff that was there is filler. that
Hmm.
were horrible parts of the product, a lot of those have been taken out.
Yeah, and I think the two things again that I would like to see the WWE change, or I would change, is number one is again build new stars. You have to
Mm.
find a way to build new stars, um, and I think that a lot of these mid card storylines could be better because in my mind the way that I see booking is that if you have two individuals in a mid card program, just as an example, you had to beat as a heel, you had to beat Coco Beware back in the day in order to get a shot at the Intercontinental title. Like that was he was the test run. If you could have a run, you could work a month or so with Coco Beware, get a great reaction, then you were probably going to get the IC title. That's what they did with Rude. That's what they did with Perfect. So I think that that's what you need. You need some way to build off of those mid card feuds so you can elevate, all right, to the next level. You know, whether you use a Bobby Roode and a Dolph Ziggler in a tag team format to get, hit row over, for an example. That's what you gotta kind of have to do. You're gonna have to start building these folks using mid card storylines to help boost in those individuals' profiles and whatnot. And I think that's the two biggest things in my book that if I were in charge of WWE, that I would be actively trying to find a way to fix. Build new stars, use that undercard to the best of my ability to make new stars.
There you go. The thing is, though, stop having them lose to already established stars that we don't care about anymore, like The Miz, Happy
Hmm.
Corbin. Those guys, if you want them around for TV, especially with The Miz, that's one thing to do interviews or to get beaten up, et cetera, et cetera. But really, those guys have lost credibility some time ago. Do not have them beating the Johnny Garganos, the individuals that have all been brought up from NXT. Don't have them beat those guys because that just rubs a lot of tarnish off of them. And we've seen a little bit of that, and that those habits got to die before we go ahead and you get me fully bought in on the Hunter regime.
Hmm. Agreed. And I think that like for an example, as I said, I'm not really sold on Hit Row, but maybe they need some more work, and maybe if they worked with an experienced team like Ziggler or Rude or anyone else,
Well, there's just nobody right now in the WWE slots right now that I see that's like you said, has that something, has that
right.
little something yet that I can see that that spark that's not established. All these new stars that have come in, all these new wrestlers that have come from either from back they've returned or they've come from the NXT. None of them have that je ne sais quoi as of yet. Now, can they get that? We'll see. But just nobody right now on the roster seems to have that little spark that I think that you and I would seek early on that says, you know what? Maybe we should go ahead and give them a chance. But that doesn't mean that that won't change.
Correct. Absolutely.
Well, my friend, there's still much more to talk about, though. Any last thoughts on the WWE before we head on out?
No, like I said, I feel like WWE is going in the right direction for
Yeah,
once
the
in a
numbers
very
say they
long
are.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's good. I think we're going to see continued improvement in the product. And hopefully, nobody though they won't have any more setbacks with injuries or whatnot, as evident this past weekend with Logan Paul. That obviously, I think probably, as you alluded to, probably screws up the plans for what they had laid out.
The only thing, though, when it comes to WWE, I think the long term future relies on Peacock. You forget
Yes.
about the USA and forget about Fox and forget about SmackDown or Raw. We all know that they're going to do their 2 to 3 million or 1.5 to 3 million each and every time out. The thing is, Peacock. Peacock has been, as I've talked about on the show, a laughing stock in the streaming industry for quite some time. And if it ever rights the ship far enough to where it can get 40, 50, 60 million paid subscribers, I'm not talking about the free subscribers, I'm talking about the paid subscribers, where it gets into that conversation as being a top five, not talking about top one or top three, top five streaming service. It can ever get into that conversation. I think that really will just boost the
Hmm.
WWE product as just by association, just by having them on there as one of their main viewable content products that they have on Peacock.
Hmm. Agreed.
Well, we'll see, my friend, but WWE is looking in the right direction. Heading into 2023, I think both you and I will agree that 2023 is going to be hopefully a good year for the WWE, but heading into it, 2022 was a pretty good year as far as after all the controversy and all the dust is settled. The end of 2022 has been pretty good for WWE, and things are looking on the upswing as they head into 2023.
Agreed wholeheartedly.
So, my friend, there's another little company I want to talk about before we head on to the nostalgia part of the show, and that's AEW. And, the things that we've said as far as the praise that we've had at times for AEW, and, obviously we've had the fallout and seen the fallout from the CM Punk era as far as them, behind the scenes, the fight behind the scenes between CM Punk and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. And we've seen the fallout from that. We've seen Jon Moxley rise again as the champion. We've also seen what's finally you and I have been asking for like eons now, and that is a rise to the number one contendership for MJF. And it looks like, by all appearances, at AEW's Full Gear, if you hear this before or after, it looks very much like that MJF will be taking the title. I would lay heavy odds on MJF, or at least MJF should be getting the title finally at Full Gear, because you already see the fact that he's got a lot of momentum. The crowd is eating out of the palm of his hands, and the fact that he has just got so much, dare I say it, generational talent, that he is actually exuding each and every time out on his promos, that I think it's just a matter of if, not when, he gets the title. When, not if, he gets the title. I just think at this point in time, it's a natural that the company should lean on him. He's actually already got built-in challengers if he does win the title. First off, you got to go ahead and start him on a program with Wardlow, so you can reignite Wardlow, who has faded since his you know feud with MJF. Even though he's had the TNT title, that really hasn't done a lot for him since he had his run with MJF and beat him handily on that single occasion. Your thoughts on this, my friend? Because I think that AEW, with the loss of CM Punk now, I guess they're going to parted for good. The Young Bucks and Kenny Omega look to be on the horizon, coming back at some point in time off their extended hiatus after the results of what happened with that brawl behind the scenes. I thought that was handled poorly by all sides,
Oh,
including by AEW themselves. They let go CM Punk for all the problems that they have with CM Punk. The guy was a draw for them. I thought that was a boneheaded move to let him go and not come to some type of agreement that they could all work out. And I just thought it was just a bonehead move by all parties concerned, both behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. But it looks like eventually that the smart money is now going to have MJF taking advantage.
but I'm worried about this MJF
Oh, you think they'll
run.
blow it? You think they'll blow? You think they'll
Well,
blow?
I think they're going to screw it up because of this. Is I feel like they're trying to push MJF as a babyface, and
It's not
I
going to
don't.
work.
It's
He's a baby. Yeah, it's a rock. He's a rock baby face, meaning he's a heel. He's going to stay a heel. He should stay a heel, but he's a baby face no matter what he does.
just from what I saw the last time that I watched Dynamite. They had the Firm, which I hate the fact that MJF has this entourage, which is weird because I don't know about you, Gerald, but I've only seen Stokely Hathaway. I haven't seen any of the other Firm
Well,
wrestle or on TV.
well, he supposedly fired, and they backstabbed him, and they beat him to a pulp. I didn't know what that was about in the first place. They just got him that opportunity with the golden ticket and all that. Excuse me, the chip, and I don't know. It just me to me. It just they were most of those wrestlers are mid carders at best. As mid
Yes.
seems to be the thing is you need to. I'm I think you should have reformed Pinnacle. I thought the Sean Spears and the some other guys that you want to add in there that are top a higher line as far as more thought of, as far as maybe Morrissey is somebody that you could go ahead and buy into being a better heel than most of them. But I just thought that it's guilt by association, and that wasn't a very good association for MJF.
No, I agree. It so they laid him out, they put him through a table, and I'm just in my mind, I'm thinking they're going to try to force this babyface turn that I just feel like is not going to work. I think that he is probably winning the title. I think that is accurate. He is going to win the title from Jon Moxley. But to me, what I worry about is they're screwing up the character, I feel, by trying to make him a babyface, by allowing him to interact in a positive way with the crowd, and all of that other stuff. I think is going to destroy MJF after winning this title. And winning the title should be your pinnacle moment, to use a word that we just used. Pinnacle. It should be the top of your particular career at that point that you won the title. But I feel like he wins the title and then he's going to be overshadowed by this stupid idea to turn him babyface.
Well, will say again, I think that I agree with you. Do not turn him a babyface. I really don't want to, especially like we said about after the turn that was done by the firm against MJF. Just let MJF be MJF. Let him
Yeah.
be the super heel, the devil, whatever he wants to call himself, because he's getting over. Like I said, it's The Rock. It didn't matter in The Rock as far as late 90s, early 2000s. Didn't matter if he was a heel or a face. Didn't matter because he was so over with the crowd that literally they were just loving him any which way. Even with the early Steve Austin run when he was Stone Cold, when he first started with Stone Cold, they didn't care that he was a heel and he was beating up Savio Vega and beating up Bret Hart and all that. They absolutely loved everything he did. So just let him do that, but don't turn him into a face where he's going to have to be giving people high fives and stuff like that. That spoils his character, and that's a wrong move to make.
And I would think that he's a smart enough guy not to let that happen. But unfortunately, I feel like, as evident by the CM Punk situation and the brawl backstage and everything, it appears that some people, whoever that may be, but there are some people in the front office that are very manipulative and very well probably could weasel MJF into this stupid classic babyface role instead of, as you said, having him be the kind of edgy babyface rather than your squeaky clean goody two shoes babyface. Which you mentioned CM Punk. First of all, this should have been hammered out a long time ago because it's all been reported that this complaint, this concern that Punk had was addressed multiple times, all right, or tried to be addressed multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, as you mentioned, AEW's handled this poorly. How you let CM Punk go, first of all, how you let it get to this situation is beyond me, all right?
I'm not condoning anyone's actions, by the way. I'm just saying from a business perspective, you should have gotten all of it in a room and hashed it out. And instead, you've handled it as far as, okay, we're going to permanently banish a guy who's our champion and a major draw in several arenas, especially the Chicago area.
Mm-hmm.
And you've basically just, as far as drawing an audience, drawing a buy rate, drawing, that's a familiar face to the the Warner Brothers executives, just somebody that's a face that you can promote. Getting rid of him because you think he's too much of a problem, or as far as his mouthing off, that's who he is. That's who he is.
Yes.
You knew what you were getting yourself into. That's who he is, and understand that. But you don't let him go right now when you're on the cusp of being a million viewers every week. Because Jericho is ROH champion. Say what you want, he is no longer getting you what you need to get. I mean, he's just there. He's it's nice what he's doing. He can rekindle some of that magic every now and then, but he's no longer that individual who can give you a top match and a top face anymore of your industry, of your promotion. CM Punk still can when he comes back from his injury, and I just thought it was a mistake, and I think that AEW is going to probably regret it if MJF goes to the WWE.
Well, I think they're going to regret it, maybe possibly, because let's just be honest. I mean, if they don't work out an agreement for the money that they owe Punk, You don't think that there couldn't be a lawsuit? Hey, you created this environment of a hostile work environment. You know, guys barged into my locker room, yelling, screaming. That's a hostile type of environment. I mean, I think he could cause some major problems,
And then you end up
more so
bringing him
outside
back.
of the ring than inside the ring.
And then you end up bringing him back because by the time you hear this, most of you out there, the Young Bucks will be back wrestling because they've already been hinted on television. They've already been doing some promotional work for AEW, and then you've got I'm sure you've got Kenny Omega coming soon thereafter. So you know,
But I think, Gerald, I think if I remember correctly, I think they're back behind the curtain. I
oh
think
yeah,
as
well they've been doing the vignettes and things of that nature, and I know that they were doing some promotional work this past weekend for AEW. So I just they're a done deal. They're back. They're working for AEW. But again, I just thought these are some of your top names, your top grossing names, despite what the fact that Jim Cornette says about the Young Bucks. They are a known name from their work with AEW. They are a team that whether or not they're faces or heels, they're over with the crowd to an extent. And I just think that with them, Kenny Omega, who is an over individual, and CM Punk, why you do not have these individuals out in front every week, why you couldn't do what you can to keep those individuals out in front of your television each and every week was just a blown deal. And, I know Khan has a lot of stuff on his plate, but you got to understand this is your future of your company. And these guys right here, especially with CM Punk for the next 2 or 3 years, could have been the one of the biggest faces of your company. And to just let him go like that and so unceremoniously, I understand the problems they're in, but it just seems to me like a blown opportunity.
I agree
And I'm not even a
wholeheartedly.
big CM Punk fan, but I see the great matches he's actually done with AEW, and I've seen actually the great angles and interviews he's done with AEW. And as an individual who sees the industry what it is, you just don't leave or let these guys go if they're in your promotion. It just seems stupid. I understand he probably won't go to WWE for obvious reasons, but still, it seems like to me a very big mistake.
Well, yeah, and one thing I think that I have mentioned many times before, the success of AEW relies on that crossover appeal. It relies on, because that's what I said when they let Cody go. Well, he was on those couple of shows on TBS. That's getting more faces to pay attention. Because you don't know, people love reality TV. You mean to tell me that they wouldn't watch the Cody Rhodes reality show if they just happen to flip it on one day and then maybe like it and start going? AEW needs that. They need that. The WWE has Logan Paul. The WWE has Pat McAfee, Bad Bunny. They have all these other celebrities that are getting their product out there because Logan Paul's promoting it and whatnot. They haven't had that. They haven't had that. They need that. Every wrestling company needs that. That's how it is nowadays. You need that crossover appeal. And if you don't have it, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, we'll see, my friend. But right now, AEW, I mean, just based off the fact that if they're doing pretty good numbers regardless, as far as still around 1 million viewers for Dynamite, the Friday night numbers are going back and forth. They did actually pretty good this past week with Mike Tyson appearing on the show. So we'll see as far as being able to extend with this. I really think that, again, it all relies on what you're going to do with MJF, and hopefully they won't blow it. I'm seriously hoping they won't blow it, because if they blow it again with MJF when they should have already made him champion before,
Mm-hmm.
that would just irritate me no end, and probably would just signal the fact that he would just be going to WWE in a matter of when his contract comes up.
Agreed. 100%.
Well, my friend, AEW is still is what it is. But any last thoughts on AEW before we hit the nostalgia time, or anything else you want to talk about before we head on out?
You know what? No, I think that's it. I mean, I think we've run down everything in regards to the WWE and AEW. So I'm looking forward to this trip down memory lane. I
Okay.
really am.
All right. One last thing, though, I do want to mention with AEW, and that the tag team part of it, as far as FTR, and the women's part of it, as far as Thunder Rosa. I think Thunder Rosa was out too extended a period of time. I know you like the interim AEW Women's Champion. I think that she's been with her back issues so severe. I think that they should have just again just made the WWE, excuse me, AEW champ, a women's champ out of this, and then just continued from there, and just have Thunder Rosa come whenever she comes back, contend for the title. I think both of those divisions are growing. I think both those divisions are good. I think FTR, I think they need to go ahead and do what they need to do to keep them happy, because they are the next ones to be rumored to go ahead and heading over to WWE, and try and avoid that. I would do everything possible to try and go ahead and keep them, we're happy with AEW, and that's just my opinion. I'm not a big fan of FTRs, but they have, since they've left the WWE, garnered a following because of their old school tag team uh, love, I guess, for the way pro wrestling used to be in their eyes. I think that a lot of fans, old time fans, really like and support FDR, and I think just on that basis, it might be wise to do what you can to keep them around as best as possible.
Which probably means they need to win the AEW tag team titles. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah. Well, right now, I
you know.
think, yeah, but I understand who has the AEW titles right now are really hot. They've got the scissor
Yeah.
gimmick, and they've
Oh.
got, you know, Billy Scissor Gun. Can't say badass anymore. Scissor Gun right there for you. So I think that, this is they're a team that's really good as far as entertainment wise. There are a couple of young kids who I think can win the title again, and if they lose the titles, won't be too hurt by doing so. I think because of the fact that they're so over with the crowd with the scissor gimmick and all that, I really think that, you know FTR right now is the team you want to go ahead and accommodate now, and have this team set up for the future as your future going forward.
Who would have thought like 5 or 6 years ago that we would be talking in 2022 and that Billy Gunn would be over as he's monumentally over. I mean, I never would have thought that a few years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just so funny that happened. But the Acclaimed, I mean, they've done a good job. I mean,
Yes.
if you looked at them on the surface, they look like, as MJF would say, mid. But they have done so much to go ahead and just project themselves out with the scissors gimmick and all that. As I say that, it's just something that they could be a very strong team going forward in the future. But I think if you should go ahead and do what's necessary now and put the titles on a team that you really should bank on going forward for right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, my friend. Definitely looking forward to hearing your thoughts next month on the world of pro wrestling, where we'll go ahead into detail on some awards, because it'll be December. The
Ooh.
year 2022 is over. I thought I would hit you up with that after we go off the air, but I thought I'll just surprise you now.
Okay.
So
I'll be down for that.
it'll be
Sure.
the state of pro wrestling, as far as the awards that we'll go ahead and give out on our next episode. But before we head on out, my friend, it's nostalgia time. We're going to go with the good and the bad.
Okay.
And even in the bad's case, there's been a legacy that has been left behind that actually turned out to be good for the industry as a whole. We'll start with the good first, and that is the impending retirement of one of the great stalwarts of Japanese wrestling, and also as well of wrestling in the 80s, late 80s and early 90s, and that's the Great Muta, who has been just a tremendous, or Kieje Muto, as you were, who was such a stalwart for wrestling in Japan for decades, and again, had one of the greatest heel runs as far as of the like in the late 80s that he did with WCW before they, unfortunately ruined it for him and showed us how well they booked. And I think if anybody wants to go why, as far as what happened to WCW, you can just go ahead as far as look at that, as far as how they booked the Great Muta, and just realize that they were just destined to blow it as a company anyways. But your thoughts on this, my friend? His last match will be January 22nd at Yokohama Arena. It'll be the final match of his career, supposedly. And we always say that when it comes to retirement, supposedly, because you know how these wrestlers are. But your thoughts on the legacy of the Great Muta before we head on to Survivor Series?
He was the coolest heel at the time that he came in
Yep.
89 and 90. He was so cool. Um, just did the handspring elbow. It blew me away. I was when he showed up, I was 15 years old, but still, I had never seen anything like that.
Which one? WCW? Were you there for him in Florida when he was the White Ninja, or when he was in World Class Championship Wrestling just before his WCW
I
tenure?
remember him in WCCW in World Class. I do remember him in Florida. I knew from the aftermags that he was there in Florida, but never really watched any of the Florida stuff. But I do remember him in WCCW. He was cool. I liked him because also I liked the Great Kabuki. I thought the Great Kabuki was an incredibly bizarre character, but I dug him. And so in fact, I think even for the first
They
year
billed him
or
as his
so,
nephew, I think, or
yeah,
something
they
like
built
that.
him as a relative. I was gonna say, yeah. So I was on board with it. Um, yeah, Muta's he was just awesome. That's all there is to say. I mean, innovative beyond belief. He was, I mean, I think thanks to Twitter, everybody now knows how cool he was that he ended up spraying the mist at Halloween Havoc to put the fire out on the cage.
Yeah.
So I mean, what more can you say about Muta? It will be a sad day, I suppose, or bittersweet day maybe for many fans when he hangs up the tights.
His knees
Or
will thank him. That's for sure. His knees will definitely thank him.
yes, yes. He'll hang up those tights or karate pants, whichever he prefers, and move on down the road.
Absolutely. I really think that his legacy will be felt every time someone does a moonsault. No, he did he I guess I don't think he invented the moonsault, because I think it was being done beforehand or right around that time, but he really popularized it. So now when you hear these old timers or somebody saying just, "Oh, I'm sick and tired of these guys moonsaulting around, moonsault," because that's the only move, the aerial move that they know. They can't say tope or plancha or anything like that. They say moonsault to categorize an aerial wrestler. It dates back to him and the popularity that he did, because he was out there on all those squash matches on every Saturday doing it in front of people, and no one else was doing it at the time. So definitely the fact that, again, it was a great heel run that was blown by WCW. That should have been something much more. He should have gotten a world title run, in my opinion. I think with Gary Hart right there,
Mm.
somewhere in '89 or '90, something like that. He was horribly misused in that terrible Starcade on that point system where he got 0 points. I can't believe that you went ahead and he was undefeated. He goes to a zero. It's so stupid how they constructed that. But again, he went back. He made himself to be one of the top wrestlers for decades in Japan, and I think that it just bows to his great career that we're going to go ahead and remember him, next year, early next year in this last match. So I'm looking forward to it. He's made some appearances on AEW in the past, in recent weeks. So hopefully we will go ahead and get a chance to see him once again before he heads out into retirement, quote unquote. But before we end on out, my friend, one last thing I want to touch on is this is on the eve of the 25th anniversary of the most controversial finish. I understand there's controversial finishes. There's shoots and all that things of that nature over the course of the decades and the century, over century now of professional wrestling that's been on tap, and controversial finishes and whatnot. We can go back to back to the Spider Lady.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. As far as
and
that was a
Wendy
work.
Richter. Yeah.
Wendy Richter, as far as a work shoot or shoot work, or however you want to phrase it, or go back to the 1930s and 1940s matches as far as that's concerned. But the 1997 Survivor Series with the Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart Survivor Series match that ended up with I guess a submission, quote unquote, as far as Bret Hart being caught in his own sharpshooter by Shawn Michaels for literally a half second before Earl Hebner called the bell, and literally ran out of the place and got into a car and drove away. And over the past few days, I've heard people and seen people remember this very fondly. It was a very dark time in the industry, I can say that, but out of it came a very great character, an evil character, which was, Vince McMahon saw this. he knew he was not going to look like the good guy in any of the situations that he was going to present himself in. So he embraced it and had a really just already waiting in the wings face slash heel slash face in Steve Austin right there to be his foil and to work off each other. And of course, it revolutionized the industry ever since.
Yes, I agree. I think it's one of those monumental moments in professional wrestling
Is
history.
it
I
the most
mean,
monumental in ring? I think it is.
you know what? I'm going to say this. I'm going to disagree. I think Hogan's turn in joining the NWO was the biggest. And the reason why I say that, Gerald, is because even my stepfather, who does not watch wrestling at all, was flabbergasted by it. He was absolutely blown away.
No, I
I
can see
mean,
that. Well, once he came down the aisle, and the fact that they called the third man, or, that third man was like setting up for weeks. That I think you and I saw that coming as soon as he came down the aisle, because of the fact that Hulk Hogan's popularity was fading. I
mhm.
think that, and it's the fact that Bobby Heenan kind of blew it before he he called it as he was coming down the ring, because his on screen character's dislike for Hogan actually led him into that. So it kind of actually blew the surprise actually for a lot of people out there. But I'm glad that your dad got that surprise out of it. I'm just saying for the industry, yeah, and I understand what the
Yeah.
NWO did. The NWO, that led to 83 weeks, as Eric Bischoff likes to say, of number one for them, led to millions in merchandise that's still being sold today on the WWE shop. As far as NWO shirts are there, because it's always being recycled. I got to go ahead and get me a new one. I was actually thinking about that last year. Get me a refreshed on that. But when it comes to what it did for the industry, I really think that the Survivor Series maybe a little bit more, because it ultimately gave the WWE an impetus with this McMahon Stone Cold Steve Austin scenario to blow up to the heights that it did and eventually take out WCW.
Yeah, I think that it is one of the most
It's argument.
controversial,
It's very
argu
debatable.
yeah, argumentative. Like, we've seen it a million times over the last 25 years of who knew what, who was in cahoots with who, what went down backstage. Was
Who knew
this the
behind the
work?
scenes? Who knew beforehand?
Right. It's all of that stuff, and it makes for a great soap opera. Let's just call it that. It
Yeah.
makes for a great soap opera, and it makes for a great story. Um,
I just think what
again,
it's done for the industry, it's been great.
yeah, I think that, for a negative, it got turned into a positive for the industry.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Uh,
So
I think, well, like I said, it's for me, it's close. It's for you, it's close. For me, it's close too. But I really think for me, it's Survivor Series, just because of the fact that 25 years later today, they're still talking about it, and
uh,
tomorrow, as they're going to be talking about it, Hogan's turn. They talk more about the NWO than Hogan's turn, but you're right. That did lead to so much of an effective angle and effective money making machine as the NWO. So that is no less important in the industry. And it happened for us, almost back to back within a
oh
calendar
yeah,
span. Yeah, with a calendar
yeah.
span as far as that's concerned. So we were very grateful to be around that time when that happened. So yeah, I really think that people are going to be remembering the Survivor Series 1997 for some time to come, and as it celebrates its 25th anniversary, I'm just glad that Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and Vince McMahon are all on speaking terms once again. That they can actually go ahead and have conversations. That Shawn Michaels is a different person. He's actually helping the WWE. He's a major producer role right now, especially when it comes to the NXT. He's actually taken over the responsibilities of NXT, and it's great to see him and Bret Hart, at least, on speaking terms, and Vince McMahon, I'm assuming behind the scenes, on speaking terms once again.
Hmm.
All
Well,
right.
just get ready for the barrage of memories tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the love of God, please do not let the Survivor Series or Full Gear. Please do not have that kind of ending. Just to honor it. Just please, I don't want to see that kind of ending.
Oh,
Uh,
you've cursed it. It's gonna
yeah,
happen now,
I bet I
Gerald.
bet you I bet you on Full Gear. My odds would be Full Gear. MJF, if he wins it, he might win it that way, but I don't know. We'll see. But my friend, it's great having you on the show. Please go ahead. It's your cheap plug time. The red
Cheap
carpet's
plug
open
time.
to you as always, my friend. But cheap plug. There you go. All
All
right.
right.
Go
Well,
ahead.
you know what?
Shameless plug, shameless shill. Cheap.
All
All
right,
right, my friend.
shameless plug. The PVD cast is available wherever you can find great podcasts. It's also available at pvdcast.com. Since we're talking
It's a
wrestling,
great show, everyone. You got to listen to it.
I was gonna say 2 weeks ago, I got the opportunity in September. I took a couple of months before I released it, but I got a chance to talk to Al Snow and Rhino. There you go.
This is in lieu of a head. I'm going.
um, and also talked to some comic book creators that are working with Al Snow on a comic book. Al Snow, it's a great episode because Al Snow is just off the chain, hilarious, and Rhino kind of was more subtle, more subdued. So it's like a an odd couple, if you will. It's like Oscar and Felix, being at a panel discussion. So definitely check that out since you all are loving wrestling and whatnot. But check out every episode. I would say don't stop just with that one. There's 350 plus in the catalog. Check them out. Again, pvdcast.com or wherever you find great podcasts.
It is a great podcast indeed.
Thank
Please,
you.
I highly recommend it. Al Snow right there, not being traumatized by Mick Foley. And then, of course, you've got Rhino right there for you. A tag team champion with Heath. Bringing back the Heath and Rhino tag team right there after all these years. Great to have them as Impact Tag Team Champions once again. So there you go. All right. So please catch it today. My friend, again, just truly appreciate all the time you take, listen to me babble about pro wrestling, about everything that's going on as our pro wrestling guru. But next month, my friend, think about some awards, some year-ending awards. We got to go ahead and devise a plan as only we can do because the state of pro wrestling needs to go ahead and give the best out to everything out there. And that might include a AAA. That might include a GCW. That might include an NJPW, a New Japan Pro Wrestling. Might include somewhere else that not people are expecting. So please, I expect you to go ahead and give me your best of when we hit next month together.
Are you going to give me the categories, or do I come up with my own categories?
We are going to get together and come up with our categories together. Okay. Yeah, it should be a mutual thing because we do this together. So why don't we go ahead and come up with the categories together?
Okay, we're gonna give Meltzer a run for his money.
There you go. Absolutely. Well, I'd certainly love his paycheck. That would be awesome indeed. But once again, it's John Orlando, the PVD Cast. Please go ahead and check it out today, wherever you get your great podcasts, including that one right there. But John, great to have you here, my friend. Thank you so much for obviously joining me on the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's the State of Pro Wrestling for November 2022. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day watching pro wrestling. Go ahead and check it out today. Get in.